and that was Cooper High School, and their program died, and they had to merge with Armstrong, which is right next door. It's the same school district actually, but this whole thing where you just and you still run your top players out, when you're up by 12 or 13 or 14 goals because everybody's chasing points.
Yeah.
Well, then apparently what he did is he told his players that they had to do this because he wanted to get out of that conference. So he did, because they were forced to play him. And I'm going, well, there you go. And so there's some good life lessons for a bunch of young men.
Yeah.
So I remember way back, I coached at Blake School, actually when I was still, after I got hurt over at the U and went over there to coach, I was still at the U. And Rod Anderson was the coach, a really great guy. And they had a game against one of the other private schools in town. And he knew that, the other team was super weak. And so he sent his JV over there to play them. And they won. He said, what's the point? So of sending, going over there and just destroying them. No, everybody's got a different point of view.
How long ago was that?
Oh, that was in, let me see, that was in the mid 70s.
Okay.
Because I was still it was probably probably 73 or 74.
Yeah.
I graduated March of 75 from the University of Minnesota.
Well, hell, Barry Midori is the only one on so far. I don't know if other people are trying to get on another Skype session, but Barry, he's still very active with Hockey Alberta. And he's doing all kinds of mentorship now for them, a full-time paid position. I think he's moving into the guys' side. Barry, we've been talking about Jack Blasperwick, who I'm sure you're familiar with many years ago, and the high school programs and the evolution of development where Jack played an initial role in it. And just for your information, Hal, when I worked with the men's national team and I got to stand with Herb Brooks, sit with him watching practices when we had a national team.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, Father David Bauer Arena, to see his excitement looking at what was created. We had a national team fully centralized at the big arena. And he was so excited about it. He was just like a kid in a sandbox. He just couldn't believe that this environment had been created. So I was really familiar with Herbie's achievements, but also with Jack's work, because over the years I knew of him. I read some of his stuff, and I always felt he was sort of the leading guy in the field, the sports scientist in the field. And I think, and I could be wrong, Minnesota's taken advantage of that in terms of applying tools for sport-specific training and what we're doing. And thank you for sharing the email. I don't think I have a long enough lifetime to go through them all, but I'm certainly going to try to dive into them. So Barry, it's good to have you on this morning.
Yeah, morning, Wally. I got a little bit of time anyway. So our internet is down at Hockey Alberta. We had a power outage yesterday in Red Deer, and so all of our emails and that are not working. So I get a few minutes anyways.
Good to have you. I think I see a TO is on. I think it might be Tom Malloy. I'm not sure who that is.
Looks like
Tom. Is that you?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. You have a game tonight, Tom?
Tomorrow in Red Deer.
Okay, and then they return on Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And COVID's all cleared up. You got a few practices in this week?
Yeah, yesterday was the first time this year we've had the full team on the ice.
Okay.
Everybody kind of wandered back, and We have 17 skaters because we lost a few in the fall. And yeah, I went through basically half the team and 3 of the coaches, and so there's a few people dragging pretty good because they've been laying around for 10 days. Mike still isn't back though. He's tested negative for COVID, but he feels so crappy. He said he'll probably be at practice tonight.
Okay. All right. Well, nothing really formally has been created. I had coffee in the morning yesterday with the president of Hockey Calgary and Tim Bothwell, which was really nice. Tim and him coached together at the University of Calgary for years. So Tim told me some stories about the Olympics behind the scenes in terms of the feeling like you were in a prison. And then of course, he talked about some issues with the federation and not being able to go to the opening ceremonies with the girls. And it was pretty interesting. Now, I've sent some stuff on to Marty St. Louis because we were really hoping to have him on as a guest with Lou. And obviously, he's preoccupied now with the Montreal Canadiens. So I'm just curious if anybody's been watching any of those NHL games and following Montreal and what they might think. Barry, have you had a look at them?
Yeah, it's interesting. No different, I think, in a sense, in Edmonton with coaching change, and the coach that comes in is very much different than the one that left. You can just see and you can hear. I haven't heard as much out of Montreal, Wally, with it, but you watch him on the bench, Martin, how he works it and talking to the players and patting them on the back. And there was a story out, I think, last week that said he was sort of sent in to see what they need for next year. But I think he might be the answer for them anyways. You hire other people to do the technical side, and you just, similar, I guess, to Sutter in Calgary, what he's ended up doing. You manage the people and somebody else does the technical side. So it's good to see.
I don't know if anybody got a chance to look at the video link. One was 45 seconds, shared by Al Andrews. It was Marty being interviewed in Montreal just after taking the job. I think that 45-second interview sort of revealed his philosophy of coaching, which was basically letting them play and play more freely than they have been. So, welcome, Mike, and welcome, Sammy. You're back for a while now. Good. And how about your hubby? Is he going to be ready to create a cast where we can get him and Ken on after everything's all over?
Yes. So I just got back 3 days ago now. I guess it's always strange when you get back from China. One day turns into the next. But my husband leaves. Billy leaves tomorrow. So today is their packing day. So they leave for Beijing tomorrow. They've been in Calgary for the month. So they're getting excited. It's hard to watch the Olympics and then not get too excited and not to get too amped up. But I think they're ready. They seem in good spirits. So.
Well, I can't imagine how long they've been locked up preparing, and then now they're going over. So at least something's going to happen. I just wish there was some press here to know what's going on and when the games are, and keep us in the loop and send us links of games if you can. Share them with the Shark audience. I'm sure people will appreciate it. And knowing that we're going to have, your husband on with Ken Babby after the Olympics event, and we'll find out more about sledge hockey and the transition of coaching to that and the whole concept of playing that sport and the lessons to be learned. So how did you find the Olympics, Sammy? What was your role over there?
Yeah, so I was kind of thrown in at the last minute and was contacted by the OBS, which is the Olympic Broadcasting Services, to, I guess, one of the the only female voice of hockey, had tested positive for COVID. And so 2 weeks prior, I wasn't sure if I could finagle childcare or not, or get my visas in time. But in the end, I got over there in time for just after the start of the tournament, and assumed I'd be doing color for the majority of the time. So color commentating on hockey for a international crowd. So for all, any game that was shown on CBC or NBC would have had their own voices. But if the game was shown in Australia or the UK or Hong Kong or whatever, they would be our voices. So we had to remain very neutral, which was interesting. So I did that for men's and women's hockey. And then one of the other broadcasters didn't make it over. And so I was asked quickly to do play-by-play, which I've never done. So my first experience doing play-by-play was Latvia versus Sweden men's ice hockey at the Olympic Games. And it was, of course, terrifying. But, in your mid-40s, there isn't too much that makes you nervous, excited. And I had a lot of support from the other people there, and just there's nobody else that could do it. So you got to do it, and was thrown into it and had to learn Latvian names very, very quickly. And anyways, so that was quite the experience. And the rest of the time I did 2 play-by-plays and then had to do color I did 22 games. So it was a lot. I relied on so much of my Sharks knowledge from what you guys have taught me about forecheck, backcheck. Just everything that it was just a whirlwind of trying to figure out quickly what the systems were and how to add color to an international audience that didn't know that much about hockey as well. So we were definitely broadcasting to a different audience, but it was a real pleasure. It was so fun to be there, and then getting to watch all the women's games in person. Danielle Sauvageau was there with CBC French with her colleague Jean, who did it in French. And they were pretty much the only other ones in the entire arena. There was one girl from CBC there, English, who was interviewing between periods, but she was down below. And so I just felt like it was like me and Danielle watching the Olympics in a stadium of 17,000 people. Like you're just watching the Olympics with your buddy, like a minor hockey tournament, but it's like the Olympic final. Like it was such a surreal experience in a pandemic. So I relied on them a lot, talked to Sauvageau before most of the games about her take on, pros and cons, but she wasn't watching the men's tournament. And then relied a lot on Cheryl would feed me all the CBC coverage for the men's games as to who to look for, who to do research on, and those kind of things. So anyways, in the end, Wally, I'm so glad I did it, but I got back and I watched the closing ceremonies and I couldn't believe I was there. Like it all just happened so quickly and the 2 weeks went by so fast.
Did you run into Tim Bothwell?
So we could only see them. We were in a media closed loop, and they were in all of them were in the athletes closed loop. So I could see them, but we couldn't see any of the athletes. So it was, there's this barricade. And as you're kind of in this loop, you couldn't even walk outside your hotel. You were just you could get on the bus, you could go to the rink. You're at the rink all day. You can see the athletes, you can see the coaches. Actually, the one team that I didn't get to comment on was Tim's team. So I never did one of his games, but I was there at the rink watching his games. And there was 2 rinks going on. So we had to have 2 different sets of media. I did a bunch of Thomas's games, so relied on my background with him and sort of that knowledge, but we couldn't talk to the coaches. We had no information as OBS people. We didn't have anybody feeding us any research or anything. So luckily Danielle Sauvageau did from CBC, but so I did every men's team. I did 10 of the 12 men's teams and then 9 of the 10 women's teams.
Sammy, I got a question related to the men's side. First, the fact they didn't have the superstars over, which you would have known. And what was your take on the holiday and the quality of play and the competitiveness of the teams.
So to be honest, Wally, I actually don't watch much men's hockey. So in terms of being, live at NHL games, I'm not really privy to that much exposure to the highest level of men's hockey. You see it on TV, but it's very different. So being in arena, to me, it was great hockey because there's so much parity and you never knew who was going to win what game. And that made it super exciting. But my colleagues, the two guys that I worked with, one does all the KHL games. So he had sort of intimate knowledge of a lot of these players. And the other one does Champions League and Swedish Hockey League. So they knew all the guys. And I felt like they made it really exciting because they knew the stories and the backgrounds. And I think that anytime, you could be watching Minnesota high school hockey, and as long as there's parity, then it's exciting, and I think that that's what made the Olympic men's tournament really exciting. And what we tried to do from our perspective was to tell the stories so that people watching back home took a vested interest in these men and what their backgrounds were and where they played. And because it was really the lack of knowledge. And I went into that as well. You look at the rosters and you don't really know any of the names. But getting to watch some of those guys in person was, I thought it was amazing. But like I said, I didn't really watch that much NHL in person.
Well, I was really intrigued because I watched the Americans play Canada. And Mike, you might be able to comment on the American team. They were good, like young, talented prospects. And I sort of thought, well, nobody's going to beat them because I think they have a number of players that are going to be very high draft choices, and they played a creative, possessive game that was over and above the standard of play that I saw, which was typical north-south, dump it in, dump it out kind of thing. And I was quite surprised that both Canada and the USA were eliminated earlier. And I was really happy for Finland because of the successes they've had and never having won a gold medal. But Mike, you have any comments on the, I have two questions, Mike. One's about the American men's team, and the other one, if we remember to go back to it, is, and Sammy might be able to comment, were there any females covering hockey there on the female side? And so go ahead, Mike, with the comment on the guys' team.
Yeah, I'm probably like Sammy Joe. I don't follow I only follow pro hockey through my son, so I don't watch a lot of pro. I probably only because of the kids I work with are mostly prep school and NCAA kids. So I think the college guys, certainly that I knew on the team. I always think it's a tough go when you only rely on the pure skill of a player in a short tournament without a structure there, right? So I don't know if they played with as much structure as they could have to maybe win. It was watching the games, which I really enjoyed, and actually, watching with my kids is always fun because you get to hear, oh, this guy can't do that, and this guy can't do that. And they're such elite athletes. It's unbelievable, right? But in the context of watching the Finns and the Swedes and the Slovaks play, it just looked like to me, and maybe because it's their structure from home, that they played with more structure in a small, tight tournament to squeak out those wins. So I don't know, it's and I'd love to go back at some point today and talk about the Marty St. Louis pickup too, only because I think his philosophy and your point about that, his little clip, I was been really lucky for the last 2 years to be basically on the ice with him every week and watch how he, not only how he teaches, we'd all agree. We'd look at a practice like, of course, this is how you should do this. We should all be doing this. But just to listen to how he sells it to the kids and hear the parents bitch and moan about it up in the stands because they still, it's very hard for them to buy in. Just very similar to, I'm sure, how some people might feel about him in a short stint, right, with the Canadians. But so I'd like to get back to that at some point. But as far as the commentary from the U.S. side, I do love seeing. I think we talked about this even on the women's side before the Olympics. You do love seeing other places, other places like Finland and Slovakia, and have success and win. I think it's great. It's great for the game overall. 100%. Not that we don't want to see the Americans win, but I think overall it's great for the game.
Well, I watched the women's B pool, Sammy, because the A pool, I don't know if I'm calling them by the right names or not, but the A pool wasn't exciting, was not as exciting because there wasn't the parity that existed in the B pool. So I actually watched most of the games in the B pool. I took a particular interest in Tim's team because of the nature of his story, being able to beat Germany to qualify. And I was so impressed when Thomas's team, the Czech Republic, were 2-2 after 2 periods against the USA. Did you cover that game, Sammy? Better turn your speaker on.
There we go. I did, and it was surreal. First of all, I had to say Thomas Piscina instead of Thomas Pacina, as I know him as. So they got the pronunciations from the individual versus how they would be known in North America. So like we had to not change. I mean, this is the way that people know this is their name. So I had to change that. But I so much, talked about him and his coaching philosophy and style. And even just how he changed. I mean, they're such a puck possession team, and yet they played the majority of that game without the puck. So what they were doing was, it was amazing. I also think that the Americans hadn't really hit their stride yet at that point. But what I liked about the Americans in that game specifically was that they didn't get frustrated. That they kept pushing and they kept going. And the Czech goaltender, she was incredible, but what the Thomas and his team did so well was to not really allow that second shot opportunity and almost play a philosophy of, that collapsing box around their goaltender being sort of preeminent. And that's the one thing that I really noticed in these Olympics was the parity amongst the goaltenders, specifically in the B pool in that second tier. The goalies were exceptional. And I would say that, the last Olympics we saw that, but previously, like when Wally and I were involved, we would play some of these countries and the goaltending was maybe the weakest link. And now I think it's the strongest link. I think that the backbone of some of these other teams really is that goaltending. So, but yeah, I covered that. So Wally, I'm not sure if in those secondary tier games, if you heard a woman's voice, it was probably mine.
Okay.
We were not allowed to say who we were because with OBS, sometimes they would say who I was, but because it's going to a world audience and you don't know when it's going to be cut in or clipped in or anything, it was as if we're just kind of fading in the background.
Just for your information, Jordan Fenton, I don't think he's going to join us, but he sent me a link to CBC. It was the online coverage. And I would have known if it was you or not in your voice, but it wasn't. But the coverage was outstanding and the video footage was outstanding. And
so the video footage would have came from the Olympic Broadcasting Services because CBC had nobody over there and NBC had nobody over there. So for any games that were covered, so on CBC Gem, they would have had Cheryl and Mudrick were doing the women's games. I forget what Mudrick's first name is. In the majority of the A pool, and then they would have picked up some of the other games. But on CBC, you could still hear our voice. So if you listen to, I don't know what, Latvia, Slovakia at 2:30 in the morning, you would have heard us because CBC didn't want to have that coverage. But they would pay for it to be on their site, kind of thing. So the same with NBC, you could hear a lot of it on, I think it's Peacock that it's called in the US. You could hear a lot of our stuff on there.
Okay. Well, listen, I wanted to get back to Mike because I'm going to make a connection here with Marty St. Louis, Thomas Pacina, the Sharks, Darryl Belfry, and the moving forward of the game of hockey. And I believe that what Thomas is doing and what Darryl is doing and Marty is doing are the same thing. They're just thinking of new things. They're doing things differently outside the box. And I'm watching the NHL now, and Mike, I'm absolutely intrigued because I'd advise people to watch Montreal play, because the line between structure and free play, I believe Montreal, Marty has been able to do that. I just so impressed with the last 3 games they played. Watched them closely, but yet I know, having heard his interviews and listened to them carefully, I know that he does structure things, but he allows more freedom. And his explanation of the line between creativity and structure. Mike, can you speak to that relative to your own coaching, your kids at your level? Because I think of L. Ramsey coaching as Adams. He's got it. He gets it. The kids get it. It's not like this is rocket science. It's the ability of allowing kids to play freely and pros to play freely and trust them to possess the puck and do things that you can't imagine. So, Mike, what about your environment, your kids, and knowing those styles of coaching?
Yeah, I mean, it's so foreign to me because I don't see, like, it's in my role that I do from like a coaching education standpoint and then like an advising standpoint into other organizations. I'm surrounded by the free play. Like, to me, what Marty's doing is not like, I'm like, of course that's what you do. That's what we've been doing for 6, 7, 8, 9 years. I mean, this shouldn't be like a revelation. Like, oh my God, like, how is this person changing the game? So when because those are the people, unfortunately or fortunately, I surround myself with, right? So the people that I work with understand that working on a breakout for 4 days in a row just maybe works in a microcosm of the kids actually going, oh, look, there's an actual breakout. Look what the kid did. He pulled the puck behind the net and hit the winger and hit the cutting person and skated up the ice. But what Marty does in practice, the nuances of how he teaches, and I think you're absolutely right, is that there is structure. There's a lot of structure in actually what he does. It's just knowing when to use it and then when to have freedom, because he has, in essence, the best players in the world. But I think what he's done more than anything is allowed, like what we all want in our youth coaches, is the freedom to do that, right? Because obviously those players, they didn't just get good in 3 days. They didn't just all of a sudden, oh my God, like Cole Caulfield is all of a sudden being creative within 3 days. There's something in there that allowed him to say, you are not going to be punished or hurt or disciplined for doing the things that's well within, your realm. So I think in this group, I mean, obviously I haven't been on this call very long, but in this group, that philosophy is there. And I think what's shocking is for the people outside of that environment that it could work, because I don't think they've bought in or seen how, like for me, I know how long it's taken me to get parents to be in the mindset that what we're doing out there is actually more structured than they think, that will benefit the kids at the end of the day. That's just, I mean, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it's just to me, what you're seeing is that what we all want to see, and they're just seeing it done at the highest level.
Mike, I'm not sure who put their hand up first. Barry put his hand up and Sammy. Barry, we don't want to lose you, so we'll take you first and then Sammy. Go ahead, Barry.
Sammy was first, so go ahead.
Okay,
I'm
Sam.
chivalrous. Yep, go ahead, Sammy.
Maybe it's the same type of question, but Mike, I was just curious if you, the coverage for the women's game and the final game, I was pleasantly surprised to hear Canada speak about their experience in this way, that the joy in the game, the buy-in to the roles, and the ability to be creative was not really what I had seen from Canada all year. And the way that I had researched Joel Johnson is that that's the way he coached, and that he was almost like a Ted Lasso type coach that the players really loved. And then in the final game, I felt like there was a reversal of roles where he like cut down to 2 lines, and it just seemed like both coaches did the opposite of what I thought they were going to do in that experience. So I was just curious what you thought on that, and if I even read that right from a color commentating perspective.
Yeah, I was shocked that when you get like you play that role all the way through, and you build that foundation, and then you fall back to nature, like your human nature, saying I just got to put my 6 best players on the ice for as long and thinking I'm going to get back to a place where we can play deep again. Right. And it was a weird, it's just, it's because I think that's the pressure, and that's the trust, and that's the ability to say, because imagine those players on the bench that were trusted all the way through, right to the last minute. And now you're not trusted anymore. And whether that's right, I don't know, maybe if they would have got a goal or 2 and turned it around, and we're talking how great strategy it was to shorten the bench and play your best players. But I think overall, and this is where I think our world is. I mean, this is not just hockey, but that the ability to trust the process and not to worry about the first 5 minutes, not to worry about the first period, not to worry about the second period. And if you fail, you failed by sticking to the process you laid out to begin with. And I think that's where I think the U.S. went wrong in the women's game. And I actually listened to Poulin last night speak. I think she was on an interview. I must have been watching, I don't know what program I was watching, but you could hear that the Canadians, the joy in playing was evident. I mean, it's just no doubt about it in the way they speak about their teammates and practicing and preparation, that there was so much joy. And I think people that don't understand that piece of it, especially where I'm in an area where it's like, steel sharpens steel. The best have to play the best. The worst kids can get culled out. I mean, I'm in a world right now where, you have a brick tryouts for 2015s next weekend, 2015 year burst, brick tryouts. So I'm like, well, what's the tryout? Can they carry their bag into the rink? Do they make the team? I don't know. So, but there's the pressure is so great that it's hard where I am for people to kind of see that. And so I thought that was a really interesting, pickup by everybody, is say, well, why you got all the way here, and then you just said, then you just showed by your actions you didn't trust your team. And I think it probably showed. I mean, if you really had the opportunity to zoom in on those faces during shifts, you'd probably see it on the faces of those women for sure.
Mike, we'll get back to this after we hear Barry, but I really note the difference in the smiles on the Canadian players, the girls in particularly, but I relate that to the smiles on the faces of the Montreal Canadiens, the emotional energy. So when we get back to that, Mike, I'm looking at the Calgary Flames, a similar success story with no smiles. It's all business. So we'll get back to that. Barry, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if it's much a question, Wally, is just a comment, but Wally put out years and years ago when I started working with him something called FIO, or Figure It Out. So exactly what you're talking about now is sort of what that was all about, is teaching players some concepts about getting open and how to cover each other, support and all of that, and being able to figure it out. So I think a lot of the higher level coaches now that see it and understand it recognize that if they let the players do that, so you call it free play or being creative, but that's basically what it was. And I think it started a long time ago with a few of us anyways. Babcock at one point ended up making a quote, and that's why I put my hand up, is he said that the system protects the players, which is totally against what we're just talking about, where the system, if you put a 1-2-2 in, kids or whoever it is needs to stand in certain spots. You engage when the puck goes here. You move when the puck goes there. So there is some read and react, but for the most part, it's a system that you're depending on the success of your team on. And to me, it's against what we're talking about now. And that's where it came in. You talk about St. Louis, you talk about the girls this year and all of that. I think that all of these coaches are inside out coaches, which is a new term. It's a book I picked up and it's great. It's called Inside Out Coaching, but just phenomenal. And it talks about knowing yourself first, being that self-awareness and being confident in who you are and what you can do. And what that leads to, Mike, like you're saying about the pressure on coaches to perform and to win and all of that, where these people really at the end of the day, the pressure's on them to know themselves so that when they do things with their team, they understand that if they throw a temper tantrum in front of their players, what it's going to end up doing to that group, how they are going to end up leaving them, or how do you end up approaching a player. And that's where we talk now about teams. Yeah, you're coaching a team, but really you're coaching 20 individuals. Each one of them is different, even though you've got some values and a covenant that you need to follow. Every player is treated a little bit different depending on who they are and how you're going to end up interacting with them. So I think it sort of fits in with what you guys are talking about. And, you know, having been part of the female program for a number of years and seeing the smiles this year, to me, that was by far the biggest change that I've seen in the last 15, 20 years in that program. Is the kids are now having fun playing, going to the rink, like the dancing, the singing, the stuff on the bench. That would have never happened before. It was much more a professional approach to the game, and not that Ryan didn't professionalize his team, but I think they did it in such a different way that it made them to be successful. So anyways, thanks. And Wally, I've got to go. I got a call just as you said you're going to lose me, so I might come back on.
Okay. Try to get back on, Barry.
Okay.
Thanks,
Just for the benefit of everybody else, and maybe Barry, there was an article about Troy Ryan and Gina Kingsbury. And Gina, after Canada won the first game against the US, which I thought they were fortunate to win, but I would have reacted like nervously because the US outplayed them. The goalie basically won the game. But in the interview, and I always do read the papers about what coaches say and managers say. And what was said to me was Gina complimented Troy's emotional intelligence, which I think is what we're talking about here, Barry. Knowing yourself and knowing how you affect people, inside out coaching, Ehrman, EHRMANN. Good. I'm sure the people who do hear this are going to write that down and get on it. So, Mike, you had your hand up. I'm curious here. Where are you going to take this? Go ahead.
No, I just think that's one of the challenges, and Hal could probably jump in too because he lived it. Like he's a part of the structure of, and Al too, of USA Hockey. The difference in teaching, the understanding that structure and systems are two different things. Like having, and I think we struggle with that when I'm working with youth coaches, that you can have structure without a system. Like you don't need to define a 1-2-2 as much as having the structure of when you are in a quote unquote 1-2-2, why it looks like that and what the benefits of it are. So of that type of offense or defense. So I think it's just I just wanted to bring it up only because, and I'd love to, and Hal could probably talk about it a little bit from the structural point of view from USA Hockey, but the difference that we have to get away from, and maybe it's just the way the language and the verbiage we're using, that we're going from that structure and systems are two different things. We have to have structure because the game is played there's constraints within the game, but you don't have to have, but that the system actually diminishes the ability for our talented athletes to be creative.
Okay. Mike, maybe Al will want to talk to this, but when Barry talked about FIO, that was many years ago, when we basically just gave him a picture And for Al's benefit and for any NHL coach's benefit, this is how I would teach forecheck. And I do it in 1 minute every coaching clinic at the beginning. Because I say, I'm getting this out of the way so you don't spend a lifetime on forecheck. And I just hold your hand up in a claw in front of you. Go ahead, Mike, I can see your face. And I'll make a claw. Now look at your hand. No, hold it. I'm serious. If you make a claw with your fingers, there, you got a 1-2-2. And you move it to the left and you move it to the right. They're all connected. F1 steers to the left. You've got width and depth. Somebody falls down. Who's the new 1-2-3? Puck goes D to D. How do you move? How do you simulate the rotation of positions and interchange? Well, that's the forecheck. We're done. It's a 1-2-2 when it should be, usually on a dump in, and a 2-1-2, usually after a rush and a free puck. But that's your forecheck. It isn't one structure or the other structure. It's a combination of flexibility within that. So forecheck is done. D-zone cover, the picture is, well, that forecheck, we do a forecheck mirror within, doing it in Newfoundland with the Newfoundland girls under 18. And the director of Hockey Newfoundland was on the ice videotaping the session. And we did a forecheck mirror drill. I wouldn't do the mirror drill on the ice anymore. I would just hold the hand up on a bus with kids that I've done with Alberta's own teams. Say, here's your forecheck. Hold that hand up and say, figure it out. So when I did it with the Newfoundland girls, the forecheck mirror, when you forecheck to the left and you stop, and the puck's in the left corner, and they go D to D, there's a little hesitation because they don't know who's going to be F1 now. And you have to say, let them figure it out. And that's where I said FIO. And the gentleman that was videoing the session screamed, FIO. We use that with our Newfoundland boys team. And we managed to beat Ontario, who were the best team in the country at the time, with that free play philosophy. So, the terminology of structure and system, I think they're one and the same. It's the degree to which there's a freedom and almost a connection between all players to read the situation and position accordingly. So I say width and depth all the time, have width and depth appropriately, more depth, less depth, whatever the degree of possession is or not possession. I just wanted to share that with you because I think we can almost get too caught up in this. And I think, I'm not sure how structured Marty is, but I just know the players are a hell of a lot happier because I'm sure they're not being told what to do. And players enjoy the game more when they're playing the game and not trying to please you, playing the way you want. And it's that simple at any level. So when I think in the NHL or any level, you lose your team when you overcoach, and you can never overplay, never. Anyway, I've had my chance to be on the bandwagon. Hal, any comments?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is, I always say, at least here in the US, we have amateur players coached by amateur coaches and refereed by amateur referees. And, most of the coaches that the kids, I mean, by the time they're 18, they've probably had 100 coaches. And most of them are dads who might have played hockey and might not have. And then there's this big tension between winning and getting better. So there's the mindset of winning, and that results in short benches. That results in lots of screaming and yelling. That's a lot of all sorts of things. Or if you have a growth mindset, things change. I learned, quite a number of years ago. So we all think as coaches, we all want our defensemen to, you know, have narrow gaps coming through neutral ice. What does it happen? No. So I started asking the kids, I go, you know, why is this so hard? And the answer was really simple. They're afraid. They're afraid they're going to get beat, afraid the goalie's going to yell at them, that the coaches are going to yell at them, their teammates are going to be disappointed in them, and their parents are going to yell at them on the way home. So a lot of the kids, you know, they've learned to play in fear of making a mistake. Okay, and so I don't know. I mean, quite a number of years ago, I always figured practice belongs to the coaches to work with the kid. The games are for the kids to play. And you know, the only time we'd ever kind of get hard with them is if there was no effort, if they kind of quit on themselves or quit on their teams. But you know, we're talking a lot about possession and not throwing the puck in, and you know, kids need to learn to make plays, but they also need skills to make those plays. And they've only learned one way. I think, Wally, you talked about it a couple weeks ago. Put your head down and go north and south, and you know, there's no east or west. And so I just think we've been so rigid with the kids, and then expecting outcomes at such very young ages that by the time they get into high school, at least in Minnesota, they're just terrified. And in high school, they only play 25 games. And so there's so much pressure to win every game for seeding purposes or to get into, we're in right now, for the girls, Minnesota State High School Hockey Tournament. And the head coach of our program he's been talking about winning the tournament since last summer. That's the only acceptable outcome. Well, okay, so they got semifinals tomorrow, and then finals are probably against War Road, Minnesota. That's going to be pretty tough. And so, but just to circle back, I mean, we got to give kids opportunity to play and play with a lot of freedom, and the freedom to make mistakes. And you have to tell it to them over and over and over again. Now, they make the same mistake 8 or 9 times, or 2 or 3. We might want to gently correct and suggest other solutions, because the game is an ongoing series of 1-on-1 or 2-on-1 confrontations, and it's a problem to be solved on an ongoing basis, all over the ice. And the players without the pucks are more important than the player with the puck. And so, anyways, that's. I loved Marty talking about with the younger kids that what does he call the shot from the outside that's going nowhere? He's got I call it the sort of the give up shot. I'm tired. I can't think of anything else to do. I'm just going to throw it at the net and pray. And then I think I saw on the video there, he was talking about slap shots. And about 20 years ago, I decided with my Bantam team, because we got beat on a block slap shot the year before that knocked us out of the end of our season for us. Block slap shot, guy goes down, scores on a breakaway, and season's over. I said, well, that's never going to happen again. So I said to the kids the next year, no slap shots from the blue line. None, 0. If you take one, spend a period at the end of the bench, you know, and just wait till you come up again. We scored over 1,000 points that year in about 55 games, not goals, but points. Because if you think about what happens during a slap shot, it's like you're committed. You're just committed. Your head's down, you're focused on it, and everybody closes in. Where if you've got it in shooting position, but it's easy, and the kids, you know, they like it, but it's normally a breakout pass and whatever. So actually, for the next 15 years, when I got to high school, I said no. You know, I discouraged them from taking slap shots from the blue line. And with the girls hockey, I discover they just, when they run out of things to do, they just kind of flip the puck at the goalie, and then everybody cheers. when the goalie, when it hits the goalie. I go, well, let's cheer when it goes around the goalie and goes into the net. That to me is more important. So anyways, this is all fun. It's great to chat with all of you.
Hell, I wanted to share a thesis that was done by Josh Andrews. He went to Finland. A number of young coaches have gone to Finland and taken their Masters of Coaching program.
Yeah,
And he did a thesis on scoring.
yep,
And they researched, I think, 2 years of NHL goals.
hmm
And he came up with his thesis. The thesis is like 150 pages long, but I summarized it into one page on shooting smart.
yeah,
And that thesis is exactly what you said. Now, you say don't slap shot. And I want to share a story of a player that I played with on the national team when he was 18 years old, a defenseman. And we were playing in Finland. And Carl Brewer, who's an icon of the Canadian national team and in Canadian hockey, he was playing in Finland at the time. He was a former national player, but not with our team. He watched us play, and Steve told me at coffee the other day, Carl came up to him after a game, and I'm just going to give you one word of advice, son. Whatever you do, you have to get the puck through.
right,
No shots get blocked.
right,
And so Steve took that, played in the NHL with the Oilers and other teams. That was his biggest takeaway, possessing the puck at the top. And so the thesis, that aspect of smart shooting at the top is one part of having a chance to possess the puck and create another chance to score. So if any of you want it, I'll share that thesis, one pager with you.
sure, love to see it.
It's really a brilliant, simple thing.
But
So
and I sort of did my research on this, and I go to well, it was North Star games on before they moved to Dallas, and I noticed even when they were good, they had a few years they were pretty good, but when they got behind, they started taking a lot of slap shots. And if they took more than 15 slap shots in any game that I watched, they lost the game. And if they took less than 15 slap shots, they won the game. I go, okay, so it's not a huge sample for sure. But I started teaching my Bantam kids and then the high school kids, exactly what you're saying. The goal is to get the puck to the front of the net, not to wound your teammates that are in front of the net. And if you're coaching younger players, as coaches, we say you need to get in front of the net, and they're going, but are they doing it? They're not stupid, especially at the Bantam level. They're not going to go there and have their teammate fire that thing, right past their face masks or into their bodies. So if you take the slap shot away and tell the D, your job is to get it to the crease. And your teammate's job is to be there when it gets there and help you score that goal. And the first time I told that to a group of defensemen in Bantams, one of them started to cry. And I said, what are you crying? He goes, well, you tell me I'm not supposed to score? I said, no, we're supposed to score. We. And yeah, your teammates are not going to help because they're standing wide of the net because they know that you would, what your shot looks like. And there's some Bantam kids, got pretty big guns, but they have no accuracy at all. And, so anyways, it's just, I learned a lot of this just by observation and trying to figure out ways as Badger Bob, who Johnson would always say, I'm trying to give my teams an edge. Just trying to find a little bit of something that's different and help them score more goals and help them be more efficient at what they're doing and point out, just point out the obvious things that, if you can just fix some of those or change them. I'll shut up after this, but I don't know if you remember a guy named Dan Mandich. He was a Canadian. He played Pee Wee hockey with Gretzky and all that group. And he lives here in Minneapolis, and he's a really good friend of mine. And He and Dan played for the North Stars for a few years, but he played for Ohio State. But when in junior hockey up in Canada, he wasn't getting recruited. And finally, one of the coaches said, "Well, Dan, you need more points." And he goes, "Yeah, but I can't get the puck through." He says, "No, you need more points. So if there's no shooting lane clear to the net, pound it just wide of the net on the boards, and it'll pop back out. And one of your teammates will put it in the net, and you're going to get an assist." And he went, "Oh, okay." And he started doing it, and his point total went way up. And he got recruited to Ohio State, and he got drafted by the North Stars. And he credits it to that, just that one little change in his game. So, anyways, those are a few stories for you.
Mike, have you taught, like, when you say shoot wide, I think, well, most shots, slap shots from the winger, they're a breakout for the other team because that puck's going too fast to get to your far winger going to the net. So shooting off the far pad, and I've even had debates shoot off the near pad, and I've heard of that scoring thesis. He said just in tight, passing to yourself off the goalie's pad. So those are sort of the way the game's evolved. And I think that Marty is the creation of space by the puck carrier, but also the going to space without the puck. What you do, the people without it are more important than the people with it. And I'm really excited to see where his team goes. And of course, the success of the coaches, the longevity of a coach's career is going to be with the success of the team. And we've got, a number of great coaches in the NHL with high degrees of success at this point in time. And they're sort of a polar opposite coaching styles. But yet there's a degree of letting the players play more freely than they have before, and the players knowing that they can play without fear. But there are some areas that you have to be responsible for. And that's where Daryl Sutter, the accountability part, is really reeling in the creativity to the degree where will it take them to the Holy Grail? Will it take them to the top? So I'm looking forward to the end of the NHL season, and I like you, Mike. I wanted to get back to that interview with Marie-Philippe Poulin because I listened to it closely, and one of the questions by the male person on the panel, I believe it was him. It might have been Jen Botterill. Was how do you score clutch goals? Why are you Captain Clutch? And I'm curious about your thoughts. Have any of you ever coached somebody, a player like that before, that has significantly been the go-to player to get the results you want? Anybody out there at any level, or you've played with at any level?
Oh yeah, coached a couple. The proverbial get on my back, I'm going to take us out of here, and we were down 2 goals and a man short going into the third period. And this kid, who was a junior, he was in the locker room talking before I got there, and he said, "Boys, we're going to win this," because we were in Silver Sticks, so we could come up to Canada and play in Silver Sticks. And honest to God, he goes out and scores a shorthanded goal in the first shift, and he scores 2 more in the third period, and we win the sort of funky way they do the Silver Sticks down here in the U.S. to get there. And then he was a stud up in Canada, and we were up there. And so I'll tell you one quick story, and I got to jump off. I was on the phone earlier this morning with Jim Johnson. I don't know if you know that name. He was an assistant. Yep, you know Jimmy.
Yep.
And he coached uh, Marty down in Tampa. And he said he saw a video of Marty trying to run one of his Bantam drills with the Canadians. He said it didn't go too good. He goes, you got to have pro drills for pros, and you got to have Bantam drills for Bantams. So, yeah. So Jim's looking for another job. So if you know anybody up there that will hire him, he wants to get back on the NHL side. So I got to run, guys. Nice to chat with all you guys and gals. Nice to
Pretty
talk.
good. Take care, Al.
Stories. We'll see you next week, I hope.
Okay. Now, I see two initials, LI and SA. I wonder who the people are. Could they introduce themselves? There might be new people here. Oh, it's Sammy. Is that you? No?
There
Okay.
is one that is me. Can you see the video, Wally, or no?
I don't see a video. No.
I haven't seen your video since the start, but that could just be me.
Okay.
Also, a bot joined our call at one point, which means it's just a robot. So one of them could be just a robot. That's how popular we are.
Okay.
The robot had better comments than me, so I don't know if that's.
Sammy, what do you think about Clutch? Like,
so the person that came to mind for me was Jana Hefford.
Oh yeah, okay.
And the thing with Jana was, it'd be interesting to do a points analysis of big games, but she scored the majority of her goals in big games, whereas some of our other superstars scored the majority of their points in, 11-0 routes. So she just always was able to come to play in the big moments and the big times, and very unassumingly so, almost like Marie-Philippe. Well, Marie-Philippe Poulin is a whole nother entity because she does it everywhere on the ice. But and another one is Hillary Knight on the American side. I mean, she scored in that final game, and she really did take her team on her shoulders. But the amount of overtime winners she scored or game time goals she scored, big moment goals. I mean, she's a similar par to Marie-Philippe Poulin. Just this time came out on the other side of the coin. But I would equate the two with their impact on the game and impact on their teams.
I wonder if it's a personality thing. The ability is a factor, but more important is sort of the internal drive to get excited, more excited, but not tight, to not grip the stick tight, but to actually perform at the right time. And I'm just wondering about that quality, whether you can identify it earlier in kids and capitalize on it and bring it to the forefront. But I like your mention of Hefford. Mike, you might not know this, but Hefford was playing on our team in Salt Lake City in 2002. And she scored the third goal to make it 3-1. 1 second left in the second period. And it was a face-off play on our end, a breakout play that unit of players playing together in Toronto had talked about, I guess. Not all the players, I think they knew the play, but it was basically a wheel behind the net and a rink-wide pass to the far blue. And she scored with 1 second left. And I remember it like it was yesterday. So those kind of players are special. And they do come through it at big times. And hopefully we'll see more and more of them. But Marie-Philippe Poulin has been doing that since 2010. I don't know how often she did it when she was playing minor hockey. But when you're coaching younger kids, I don't know that there's those kind of kids that I haven't watched enough minor hockey to realize, well, here's a clutch player. Here's a clutch player. It's very intriguing. It was a good question to ask, asking a clutch player why they do it or how they do it.
And what did she respond with?
it was sort of a general response.
She always deflects. She never
Yeah.
really answers about herself. She always deflects to her teammates, which is an amazing quality. But it's hard when you want to get to know her, you know, like what goes on in her brain. I'm sure she probably deflected too. It's just great to get to play alongside Brianne Jenner and Sarah Nurse. And
I think that's what you said is probably why. There's that degree of internal selfishness that it doesn't show and you never let it out. It might be degree of responsibility within you, ownership within you, with such a big degree of respect for your teammates and being able to rise to the occasion. It's amazing, but you're right. She's not a self-centered person at all. And it's curious. Somebody should do a study on it. I'm sure somebody might down the road here. So
I'm sure there is. There's probably books written about it, especially in other sports, because this is not abnormal. You know, every sport has these people. And maybe from a sports psychology perspective, there must be something. Mike, check your bookshelf. There's got to be something.
But I want to say that the nature of the sport, ice hockey, lends to this, right? Because the debate down here is always, and not to generalize, but overall, when you look, you don't see it. You don't see the same thing in basketball. You don't see it in baseball here. You don't see it in football. The ice hockey. Not that I don't want to say the athletes are more. I think they understand from an early age that an individual player can't just dictate the game by themselves without other effects. In basketball, you can. One player can dictate basically a game, and in a lot of ways, you know, all the other people are doing all the things they need to do in baseball and football. But you know, you don't need the way hockey is structured. I think lends itself to players understanding that they need a full unit of people helping them achieve their goal. And it's just the nature of the sport. Like I'm one that when I work with the little kids, like I'm not somebody that says, oh, you got to pass the puck every time. Like we have kids that score, you know, in these little games and they're scoring all the time. I mean, at will. And I never try to be like, okay, you can't score anymore. I try to get them to think about other ways to get to the net and challenge their skill. I think they're just some players that love to score. They love to go to the net if they can do it. Listen, if we have players that can just take the puck at the face-off and go score, are we ever going to tell them that they have to pass the puck? Because they go score. But what's the negative effect? So I think players learn because of the way the sport's structured that they need to work with their teammates to get to a certain place. But I think Wally, you're right on last night in that interview. And that's a quality. I think maybe privately you could get that out of a player, but publicly she wouldn't even mention herself. So of course it's not me. It's all these great players around me that are doing these great things. So that allowed me to have the puck in a place where I could, showcase my skills. But I think that's more. I don't know. Because I'm around a lot of other athletes in other sports, and I think it's more the creation of what hockey creates as opposed to what other sports encourage.
I'm looking at Poulin. I might be mispronouncing it with my English, but the evolution of her role as a leader, I think, has evolved with the organization and the coaching staff and Gina's role as the manager. There's definitely a team first mindset, and Poulin's a perfect captain for that, not an outcome mindset.
I think Wally, the team has evolved to reflect her leadership rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
I think that she has always been that person, and she right from the get-go joining the organization. But I think with other leaders perhaps around her, or maybe more voices heard, that mentality was not always reflected. And I think what these last 4 years have allowed is that slowly but surely others are buying into what she has brought. And I think that includes Gina and the coaching staff. That she would never say this, but I mean, I think that whole program reflects who she is.
Good point.
And I think that Hockey Canada was only allowed to do that because this is a generational superstar who's been there for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, like if she was just there for 2 years, you don't necessarily see changes like that. But this has been a slow, gradual build, I think. And yeah, anyways, my 2 cents. I silenced the crowd.
Well, we've talked about a lot. I think, you know, Marty St. Louis and the Montreal Canadiens and the NHL, the Olympics, it's all great stories, and it's just good sharing ideas about them. And hopefully people taking the messages and moving forward with maybe applying some of the theory. And Mike, I'm really amazed at what you said about it's sort of like a banging your head against the wall in the minor hockey system in terms of the old school style of coaching. And where is it going in your mind? Like you're sort of in the middle of seeing what works and what needs to be done, and not knowing how to make it more universal and make it accepted.
Yeah, it's such a hard. It's just a hard question because you see, again, I really have to be careful when I talk with, you know, Hal was talking earlier about the fact that you're amateur, you know, amateur dads and moms with amateur kids and amateur officials. I get all that, but I don't. This doesn't come from those amateur people. When I see culturally what's happening in our neck of the woods, it's the leaders. It's the people that you would think that, you know, if they were on this phone call right now, or if they were on this call with you, Wally, I think they'd all agree. Oh, of course, you know, free play and kids being creative and letting the game, you know, take, you know, that letting the kids have the ability to make mistakes and not harping on a defenseman that thinks he can rush the puck through the middle of the ice and lose it, get scored upon. I honestly think they'd all agree. Of course, that's what we want to do, but then they can't live it because there's too much strain on the fact that they will lose. You're going to lose. I mean, I remember bringing back in 2001. I just gotten done coaching college hockey, and I took over a job in Danbury, Connecticut, and we were the first program easily in New England to do to start cross ice mites. So 8 and under cross ice hockey across the board. Like there was no other option in the rink. You came in, we lost hundreds and hundreds of opportunities for kids to play, but we gained. I mean, we did 80 kids on the ice, you know, for practices and games. And it's slowly, like that was one group. And I think that's the way I try to approach things is you got to take the one group and then hopefully they don't have too much success. Al's seeing this with his group, right? They have a lot of success and everybody's like, look at all the success they have. They're so good. We need to get them out of this structure and now have them play real hockey. And I'm like, well, that's not the reason the success is there is because of the base you've built and have to continue to build. And I'd be really interested to hear, you know, I'll pick Marty's brain this summer, hopefully. But, you know, you got to remember, Marty St. Louis, with the team he was coaching, they joke around about this Pee Wee coach becoming an NHL coach. He still had the best players. I mean, even at the 13U level, he still made a team up of the best players in Fairfield County. And he had kids driving from the end of Long Island 2.5 hours to come to practice. So it's a very, it's almost an experiment. Can you do this with just lumping in, you know, sticks in the middle of the ice and picking a team and still create that environment for success? I mean, he could have this free play. That's why I kind of said to him when he first got the job, it's really going to be interesting to see what you do with really talented hockey players, like the best of the best now, because you can be so much more creative. And I think I brought this up on the phone call before when I was working with the Whale. I could do things with the Whale and the professional women I love doing it because I could be so creative and thinking about how I could make it fun and how I could make an environment of development that I just couldn't get with my little 12U team because they didn't have the skill to do it. And they hadn't developed the ability. I don't want to say it's IQ because it's not hockey IQ. It's trust. It's trust that they could try it and nobody was going to say that's wrong. And dad and mom weren't going to be in the car being, I know Coach Benelli thinks you could play any position you want, but you can't. You're not good at that, or you look terrible on the wing, or you're a born defenseman. And I don't know. It's a struggle. And I mean I know we all have the same struggle. I think for me, I see it a lot more only because I'm involved with so many different programs. I mean, I work with maybe 8 or 9 or 10 programs now, and I hear the same theme over and over and over again. And it's just driven by, I'm not really sure. I can't pinpoint what it's driven by because you see the players and the people that you could see it in this little microcosm of these 4 games. And maybe Marty's been lucky that, like we were laughing last night that they played the Buffalo Sabres, who've actually been pretty good as of late, but all of a sudden Montreal gets a chance to play a team and build on the myth that this is going to work, right? So we'll see what happens. But I think it all comes down to like anything that we talk about is that process and believing in it, and hopefully you could be a strong enough person to withstand all the all the negativity and the negative energy and honestly the failure.
I'm thinking of Montreal, and I think of one player in particular, and Caulfield. He's a defenseman, Mike?
No, he's a forward.
Okay, well,
might not be a person I'd experiment on doing, but
well, I'm saying he stands out a lot more. He's going to places, making things happen. But I believe there are Caulfields playing defense if you let them. You can get more involved. So the game has not evolved to that degree. And Sammy Joe, watching the women play, the only offensive defenseman on Team Canada that I saw that went below the opposition goal line was Jocelyn Larocque, the best defensive defenseman. And I really do think at all levels that some of those defense, the way they're being constructed today, they're a part of leading the rush, being a part of the rush, and sustaining the rush, and they can do so more often as the game evolves and people get comfortable with the interchange of positions. Tom?
Yeah, I've been listening. There's some comments on a few things. I think first of all about the slap shot from the point. If you can get it through, it's great. Like it doesn't matter whether you're using a slap shot, a backhand, a flip shot. If you miss that first player and if you can blast it through, I've seen lots of goals. Gretzky used a slap shot. I mean, half his goals. He'd fake, get the goalie moving, and then shoot where the goalie was coming from. So I don't think there's anything wrong with a slap shot as long as no matter what shot you do, if you bury your head and hit the shin pads, it's not a good play. And about the Flames, I totally disagree with you, Wally.
Okay.
They have activated their D. They're up in the play all the time. His structure is basically not a lot of structures. I've talked to Preston, who coached with him for about 10 years. He just wants, nobody takes shortcuts. So when you're on a defensive one-on-one, you have good habits, you play on the D side, and everybody all the time is doing their job. Nobody's, kind of just watching and waiting for the puck to pop to them. And so that's kind of my opinion about that. And then as far as this free play, I've been doing it forever, and I've had, been coached a long time, and I've coached my son all through from being a little kid all the way through. And we had a group there that just played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's kind of how I ended up in the college. And we did the same thing at Mount Royal as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I believe you need to have home positions. I said that a little while ago. So you figure it out. But if I'm the center, or Wally's the center and I'm the left winger, and we're both coming into the zone at the same time, one of us has to go low and one of us has to cover a point. So at that point, then the center goes low. But if the center was down forecheck and is trapped deep in the zone and the winger's the first one back, then they play low in the zone. Like tonight in my practice, I'm going to do this because we're switching some players around. I'm going to do this wave drill where you skate the 5 positions in the D zone. So I point at the corner and everybody has to go to the corner. I point at the hash and then the low forward goes to the hash. And it's always a man on box behind kind of a thing just to review that. But it just depends when you come into the zone. But, generally, most of the time you end up where you started because of the face-offs. There's basically 6 transitions a minute. The puck changes hands in an average game 6 times a minute. So, you're kind of where you were unless you cut across the ice or this sort of thing. But, then you read man on, box behind. So you coach in shapes, so players have a shape in their mind. But anyway, that's my comment on the stuff I've been hearing. I think it was great that Sammy was over in China calling all these games with people. She had no idea who they were. That would have been an unbelievable challenge. And so that would have been really, really neat to do. So there's my 2 cents worth for Thursday.
Tom, I'm glad you brought up that point of the Flames and disagreeing with me. I actually appreciate the activation of their D. They might activate their D more than any other team I've seen. And Shillington is particularly good at that. And he's still discovering the line of how far he can go and how often he can go. And they have to discover that. That's a coaching evolution thing. And Daryl obviously is allowing it to happen because Tanev, again, like Laroque on the female side, the best defensive defenseman on the team.
Well, apparently, Wally, they had a meeting of the coaches of how to get their D more involved. They had the neatest, it's been on the highlight packages a lot, the neatest face-off play. They got it back to the right D to Anderson. He went down the boards, and number 55, Hannafin, went to the far post. And he fired a pass across and he tapped it in. And they kind of rotated just like basketball, where the forwards drove back and the D went forward.
Yeah.
And they do that kind of thing all the time. And
Tom, it was really interesting to watch Owen Power live because I had watched what's his name? One of the coaches do a breakdown of his sort of butterfly sequence that he does in the O zone, and he basically like goes to the close post and around, and then to the other post and around. And to see him do that live with his toe caps always facing the play was, it was magical. Like this skating on the ice, his ability to skate was incredible, but also how everybody else just read and react to him. And the forwards were playing D, and just there's so much movement. It was just really amazing to see. And on that note too, Wally, I think Renata Fast got a couple of her own rebounds. So she was in the play a lot. And then Erin Ambrose was certainly up in the play a lot. And it seemed like the Canadian women were trying to activate their D too, almost I played a lot of water polo. And so in water polo, you drive and then you come out and you drive and you come out. And that's kind of what it seemed like they were doing. But Owen Power certainly does that the entire shift, which was really neat to see.
Yeah, he's something that before a game watching Brent Burns and how he does his own skating warm up, he looks like a figure skater doing all these turns, and like he's just an amazing skater. And that Power really, was he 19 years old or something? Is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he's still gangly. He looks like a Labrador puppy. Like it looks like his limbs just aren't matching with his body yet. Like I don't know if he's even 19. I mean, he just played at World Juniors, so but yeah, just exceptional, just skill and raw talent there.
Did you see him play every game? Every Canadian game?
No, but there was two rinks, Wally. So there's the NIS rink, and then there's Wukasong. And so it just depended if we were at the. So I saw 2 Canadian men's games, maybe 3. They all kind of go together now. I didn't see the knockout phases for the men's because the knockout phases for the women's were going on. So I haven't seen those yet.
Like, I didn't watch enough of it, but I watched last year's Worlds where Owen became one of the best D and the most offensively involved D and an impact player that won a gold. They won a gold medal just with the way they played. And I didn't see the flashes of his dominance and impact in the few games that I watched. And I didn't watch them all. I didn't see him often enough to notice, how he played. And I'm wondering to what degree the skill level of the team would have allowed the interchangeability and allowed him to play more freely, and they would naturally cover for him, and how the coaching staffs might approach how they're going to coach the game in a more structured or less structured or more interchangeable way of playing. You're not there, so you really don't see it. That's why I wondered, was you watched him skate the game with that butterfly? That was during the game?
Yeah, that was his every shift. Basically, he was from the point down into the corner, back to the point, and then over to the other corner, and then back to the point, and then into the other corner. And he's, he just has this. Daryl Belfry did a good breakdown of him on Twitter, just showing his loops at the World Juniors.
Yeah.
So it was fascinating to see that in person. But I don't know if that's what hurt them in the end or not. But in the games I saw them play Germany and China, I think were the ones. And he certainly puck possessed a lot in those games and got open a lot. So I don't know, it's a short-term tournament. It's very different than if you're with guys a lot. He reminded me a lot of when I watched Hughes play on D. Like, it would just seem like free-flowing. And just such a good skater. I mean, that's what just was so remarkable watching him.
Tom, your hand's still up. Yeah.
Oh, I should have put it down, but that's really interesting comments about him. It's just the evolution of what the Ds are doing is pretty amazing in the game. And I think we can learn a lot from basketball. Like last night I was doing the power play where like Terry was going over the PK, but I was doing power play. But to get the players to move is really tough. Like, we're doing the 5-on-3, and I was trying to get them to interchange positions and pass, follow the pass, and do scissors and all this. And they've all come from places where they go and they stand in a position, and it's really hard to get them to be more flexible. And that's a challenge in the coaching right now, because they're kind of stuck in their ways when they get to college. So
I see a couple of hands up there. LI, who is that?
Don't know, Wally.
Go ahead, Barry.
No, it's Jordan, Wally.
Okay, Jordan, go ahead.
So to add to what you were talking about, Tom, and it goes back to the structure versus systems talk. This past weekend, we were out in a tournament that you first went to, Tom, with your AA program, to a BC AAA tournament. And so we're out in Langley there for the last few days. And I know that there were some parents that were really concerned about us going out and competing in it. And because they have seen that we don't have a whole bunch of set systems that they like the comfort in. Instead, we've taught some structure and lots of concepts through the year. And it was actually kind of funny when you're talking about the power play, Tom. We had we're playing a team that has had won the last 3 national championships prior to COVID, and when we were on the power play against them, we did everything but score. We kept pressure in their zone and just maintained possession and retrieved pucks after shots and just kept going. And it was funny after the game and talking with their coach. He said, you had us scared there on the power play. He said the girls were coming off the bench and coming off to the bench and saying, well, we can't figure out what their set is. And I said, yeah, that's because we don't have a set. I said, we do whatever the defense gives us. And so if they give us play down low, we'll take a play down low. If they give us up to the top and a seam pass, that's what we're looking for. And so it was actually really interesting. And so I shared that with our kids, and they were pretty beaming about that. And so it was real great learning experience for the kids in seeing that and getting to experience that and understanding that that the concepts that they've learned through the season haven't put them to the place where we were over the top on those teams. We only won 1 game, but most of them were 1-goal games against, and so it was the kids were really pleased with that, and so I was really intrigued that that structure versus system piece is one that we're going to continue to fight, and it was, I think, back to Steve Sullivan that said it, that I can teach a system that any team can be competitive, but they won't learn a thing. So that's where we're trying to work is concepts that they learn things and still be competitive. So it was a good trip. Although 13 hours on the bus each way was more than I want to do anytime soon.
We always flew there because a lot of times the buses that get stalled, the snowstorms, they couldn't get through the mountains. So, Sammy Joe, I got it. Well, it can't be recorded here. I tell you about my goaltender saga that I was telling you about before, but it can't be recorded. So someday I'll tell you about it.
All
It's
right.
even weirder. It's weirder than you can imagine.
I feel like I have told your story, not about you, but to so many people. Just
Yeah.
Well,
there's an added.
there's a twist. Okay, I'm excited.
You guys will have to talk privately. Al, welcome aboard. I have a question, and it relates to Al. You're playing whole ice hockey, and we've been talking about the ability of interchange of positions, and I'm talking like Sammy talked about Owen Power and a butterfly, how he goes down and he comes back and he goes to the other side and comes back, and everybody adjusts to Owen Power. In other words, if he's up, a forward's back. It's just automatic and natural. And to what degree, when you went from half ice hockey, L, to whole ice hockey, to what degree is that interchangeable happening?
So I'd say it really wasn't much of a change, like in terms of the approach, in terms of how I talk to the kids about it. From my perspective, the only real difference is that now we got to worry about blue line. But in terms of the rest of the game, like how we talk about it, the way that we describe the roles, the habits that we talk about, it's all the same. So there really wasn't much of a change. I would say, like, on half ice hockey, we didn't have any positions. We had 3 in the front, 1 in the back, but we didn't really call the 1 in the back a defenseman. So that, like, when we lined up for faceoffs, now, like, we have defensemen, but the way we talk about it, they're the eagle, right? They can go in. Somebody else is going to have to, one of our Foxes is going to have to become an eagle. Like, it's all the similar stuff. We've been able to rotate. I'd say there's, we've got 14 kids in the team. I'd say 10 of them have played defense a significant amount this season. We do a lot of rotation at different roles. There's a couple that just don't want to go back and they don't want to play don't want to be a defenseman, so I don't make them. But during the game, most of the kids, like if we start off with 5 defensemen, most of them at some point will say, "Hey, I want to play forward for a little while. Can we do that?" Yeah, sure, it's fine. And they're pretty, because we've been doing that all season, they can pretty well all step into that spot, right? But again, once the puck drops, it's like, okay, well, you're not really a defenseman, right? You can go in, you can go, take the puck and rush it to the net, and then play down low. Somebody else is gonna assume your role. Now we did had a really interesting experience this weekend where we were playing in a tournament that was above our skill level. Parents won the tournament. It's pretty tough to find one that lines up with our league. So we ended up in one that had teams that were 2 and 3 divisions above where we play. And the kids actually held their own pretty good. I think we lost the first game 5-2. We had a 6-1 loss, and then the last game was a little bit out of hand. It was like 8 or 9-0. But for the most part, for the first 2 games, we were in it. It was just a couple little mistakes, like Mike was talking about. The defenseman tries to rush it up the middle, the puck gets stripped, and it's in the net. Like that was how, stuff like that was how we lost those first 2 games, and we're okay with that. And especially, knowing that it's higher competition than we're used to, we're totally okay with that. But there was nothing about those teams that impressed me in terms of their skill or what they were doing. You know what I mean? Compared to our kids, it was more just they were a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, a little bit more structured, and as a result, we lost the game. And the third one was against an elite team. And for a frame of reference, like in our league, there's elite, and then platinum is a step down. They have these, and then they have 2 gold divisions, is what they call them. So there's like 4 divisions. And we played an elite team. And what struck me about them was that, again, bigger. They were bigger. They were really good skaters. But the game was really, really predictable. Like they skated their lanes. They worked the puck around the perimeter. They were shooting for tips. So they'd, these are atoms. They'd work it up to the point and then fire a shot, and kid go to the net for a tip and all that kind of stuff, right? But they did it over and over and over again. Like there really wasn't a lot of, they were good passers and good skaters, and they handled the puck, but nobody tried to really make a move. You know what I mean? Like they'd get the puck and they'd move it. And I actually saw more probably deceptive puck handling from our team, even though we lost, 8-0 or whatever it was, than I saw from the other team during the course of the game. Now, after the game, and our parents have really bought into the way that we're coaching them, and not having a lot of structure. But after the game, this is probably the first time all season where I heard talk about like, oh, there's a lot we can learn. And they were positive because they knew we were playing a team that was way out of our league. And it was like, oh, a little bit more, see how those other kids play their positions. And, they're always in their position and that kind of stuff. And it's like, I think that's kind of where things go back to, is like, once it's okay to, like, everybody's okay with this free play and not having structure until you lose. You know what I mean? And like our kids were at a position, they were on top of each other, but in reality, it was just that they're used to making decisions at a certain speed, and now they're being asked to do it at a higher speed than what they're used to. And so they ended up on top of each other. They were getting confused. Things were like we looked pretty disorganized. But again, like that's just go back to they're not used to making those decisions at that speed, right? I think the tough thing at in our league is like Mike was talking about down in Mid-Fairfield, they attract kids from like 2 hours away, right? Where our club team is, we attract kids from, we've got 3 or 4 clubs that are within a half hour's drive. And we have to put together a team to play in that same league. And at the elite level, that's really difficult because you're talking about kids that are, like those are all the early developing kids. They're all the big, strong, fast kids at a young age. And we just don't have them in the same numbers as a program like Mid-Fairfield who can draw from 2 hours away, right? So I've already told them, like, I want nothing to do with that league. Like, we are not, myself, my kid, we're not going anywhere near it. Like, we'll play the tier 1 and we'll play at the appropriate level. We'll go to parity. We'll get placed against a team where we belong, and we'll have a great year. And that's really important. And they talk about process and they talk about that kind of stuff. But when the rubber hits the road, at the end of the day, they have to put a team in that upper league, whether they belong there or not. And that's a really unfortunate thing. And then you're going to see stuff like, everybody trying to play their position and not letting the kids make mistakes and all that kind of stuff. Like a lot of bad stuff happens when you do that. So I think the philosophy is there, but when the rubber hits the road, it's like there are reasons why they had to put teams in these leagues where kids don't necessarily belong, and then you start getting into trouble with some of the other stuff. But yeah, it was really, really interesting. Again, like I thought we actually did really, really well considering the competition we were playing against. I think it goes to show that there's not a lot of difference between some of these leagues. I mean, we're playing in the lowest league. We're playing against teams that are 2 divisions up from us, and getting beat like 5-2. Like, I don't know.
Well, that's similar to Jordan's story of taking his AA girls to a AAA tournament, and the idea of them being able to be competitive. The most important thing, Mike or Al, my question was, did you feel any pressure from the parents to structure more to be getting results?
I didn't know because, again, everybody knew that we were like the parents really wanted to do a tournament, and it's really tough to find one that's at our level unless we go to play in town tournaments, which we're, because we're a club organization, they don't really want to do that. But we're playing in the lowest division of club, right? So we're really the same as like a town, B or low A team. So it's tough to find. So I had to put them in a tournament knowing that it was going to be full of these tier 1 and elite teams that are, 2, and in one case 3 divisions above where we play currently. So the parents knew it. There wasn't a lot of pressure to win. They weren't upset. Everybody was actually really, really positive because, again, it was a pretty good showing. But there was definitely talk, especially after the last game, where the team that we played was absolutely playing a system, like all over the ice, right? And they were very, very organized. And our kids looked disorganized, and it wasn't necessarily because of the way we play. It's more just, again, the kids were moving the puck at a faster speed than what we were used to, and so they looked disorganized. They weren't able to make those decisions as fast as what they normally do against, teams that are our speed, right? So then the conversation evolved into playing our positions more, right? Where we haven't had that conversation much. Like they've seen what we're doing and it works, against teams that are the same size, the same speed as we are, same skill level. So that's the first time I've encountered it. And again, I think it goes back to like just, an appropriate level of competition. Like we were running around not because the kids aren't skilled, it's just because we weren't as skilled as the other team. You know what I mean? It wasn't that we need a breakout. It's that we just, they pass the puck better than we do. They're faster than we are. They're a little bit bigger, a little bit more advanced than we are. That's it. And that's tough for parents to see. So, but again, heading into our games this weekend, like, that conversation died off after that last game. A couple of parents had a couple of lectures, on the way out the door, and I think it's in the past now, but we'll see.
Mike Pinelli.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel for Al for sure. I mean, I think this is where, and Tom, you had kind of alluded to it with when you said, I used to say the same thing, right? When I was coaching at the collegiate level, I wanted to take my best winger and make him the right D and have all this freedom. And I think what happens is, and I kind of had a light bulb go off probably like in the late 90s, early 2000s when I was winning, like we were winning state championships, league championship, and it was all structure, all of it, because I didn't have kids that had, and it was all systems, is because I didn't have the kids that I felt that you could give them the freedom. And then when you start coaching, if you can go back and get these kids when they're like what Al's doing, you can put them in these environments, then hope, like what Al's probably going to experience, right? Is all of a sudden the free play helps until that really, really good player says and gets recruited by the team that has all the structure and says, oh, you're the best player on this team. If you were in this environment, think about all the games you can win, and you'd win these championships. So it's a hard thing to go back and forth with parents sometimes, is to just to let them know that, because I experienced the same thing with my kids. If I play a 14U team that has all the same kids that came from the same environment, we are clearly better. I mean, we're in a weird spot. We can't play. We can play teams that are equal to our skill level. If I threw 30 kids on the ice and split the teams up and made them 2 equal teams, the kids that I have would be superior, would be much, much better at playing the game. It's when you put them in with players that already have surpassed them and have gotten to be in a better place. And to Al's point, know just instinctively, oh, I get the puck at the red line, I'm looking for the stretch pass and I'm getting rid of the puck and I'm moving it, as opposed to, well, I'm gonna actually create space for myself. That's where we lose these kids sometimes, because let's face it, I mean, if you don't have that skill, you have it in your head, you know what you want to do. Like I see that all the time from my defensemen. I know they want to come up and make a pass, and they just can't get it there. I can't get on them about that. I'm like, well, you saw it. It was a great look. Let's try it again. You know, and hey, by the way, you know, as you get stronger and faster, and you know, so I think it's this debate about, like, so when I had my high school and prep school kids, we won, and it wasn't because of talent. And I used to take that as a compliment. I used to love when coaches would come up to me like, Coach, I got to tell you, I can't believe you guys really, like, you could look on the ice and see exactly what system I was playing. Like, you knew, if you were a hockey coach, you'd look down on the ice, go, oh, it's clear what they're playing. And I always took that as a badge of honor. Like, of course you can see what we're doing, because we're so structured and laser focused on playing the system to win. But can I say that individually helped players advance? No, I probably hindered their advancement. But it wasn't my obligation, I thought at the time, I was a little younger, that I didn't care about my obligation to a 16-year-old in advancing their career. But now when I work with 8-year-olds, I think that's the only purpose, is to advance them. So I think it all depends on the age you're working with and the environment you're in, and knowing that, you know, like when I was at Plymouth State, I didn't have any kids that I thought would go to play pro hockey. Like, I'm like, well, they're not going to play pro hockey. We just want to win today. Like, I don't care about developing them. I only care about them winning, because they only want to win. So it's just I think where Al is, and really where I am now. I mean, my little 8-year-olds, I love the fact that they try to make these plays. Like, I'm amazed actually when they make them. I'm like, oh my God, like, you actually thought about that? Like, how'd you even do that? And because we've never like taught it, but I think that's the beauty of watching the game evolve that way. I don't know, in my opinion, and I'm looking forward to seeing Al. I hope you're gonna do a showcase up there in March with your kids for Roger on the training. Hoping for it. Good, Wally. Sorry.
Sorry, guys. The diuretics are taking their toll on me. So I just had to slip out. Al, we began talking about Marty St. Louis and Montreal, and he sort of coaches, I think, the way you're coaching, and that learn to play and figure it out philosophy and the creativity. And he's having success at that level. And we talked a lot about Canada, the USA women's competition. Marie-Philippe Poulin, her leadership skills and being a clutch player. It's been a pretty good morning of different topics. So I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. Al, did you watch any of the Olympic hockey?
I didn't really watch any of the Olympic hockey. Wally, you know, we kind of had a lot going on here, you know, between work. We actually had a tree hit the house this week too, so
yeah.
It's been an interesting 2 weeks. But I think, like, for Marty St. Louis to come out and say that kind of stuff, like, we need to get that everywhere, right? Like, the more people hear that kind of thing, the better.
Yeah.
Because again, it's not like, you know, you're hearing it from somebody at his level, right? Because it's great coming from USA Hockey, but I know, like, especially in this area, people kind of roll their eyes sometimes when it comes to, like, USA Hockey.
Yeah.
You know, because they're getting a little bit of a different message from, you know, the top league in the area.
Yeah.
Because again, like, that whole league's been built on having their mites play full ice versus, you know, the town leagues that play to USA Hockey rules and play cross ice.
Yeah.
Know what I mean? So it's one thing to hear USA Hockey talking about. It's another thing to say, okay, well, these are the best teams and this is what they're doing, which is totally the opposite. Now you have somebody like Marty St. Louis, who's got a lot of respect, who's obviously played at a super high level, who's now coaching the Canadians, saying stuff like that. Like, the more people hear that from people like that, the better. You know, that makes our job easier, because then it's not like you're not trying to convince people as much. right?
Yeah.
Like it's more, you get a little bit more credibility behind it.
Yeah.
To Mike's point, like, you know, we played an E9 team. So we played one of the E9 teams. We're in the EHF lower gold. So it might, you know, these are the leagues in New England, right? That team that we played against, there was no, like, the kids would get the puck on the stick, and again, like, they're good skaters and like they passed really well and stuff, but like they get the puck on their stick and they look for the pass like immediately. You know what I mean? And the kids were always in the right spot to receive the pass. Now, what I saw from our kids is like, you know, things were breaking down because they weren't used to a team that can move the puck like that. But there were like these little nuggets, right, of like a defenseman who would retrieve the puck and then make some kind of an escape move, bounce like a kid bounced it off the net, did a little spin kind of thing, and then moved it out to the side and made a pass that was intercepted and put in the net. But it was like, that's the kind of play that I'd love to see. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, when he's 16, 17 years old, if he's thinking like that now, as opposed to the kid who gets the puck and rips it off his stick to the guy who's, you know, busting towards, you know, to where he's supposed to be busting, like, I don't know. I just feel like it's going to set him up later. So I hope I'm right.
Yeah, it's enamoring though, right? For a parent, if I'm a parent of a 9-year-old, it's just got to, it's got to feel good to be like you. I think that you just feel like, oh, we want, like I hear it all the time. Oh, we've got to do this, or we want. Like, you don't have to do anything. You just have to get the kids a hot chocolate and get them back in the car. I said,
Yeah.
you know, you just see that, but it's really hard. And I fight this every day. I actually had a big Twitter fight with Topher Scott a couple of years ago about, you know, my negativity on social media, and I really have to watch it because I'm around people like you. I'm around this group. I'm around, like, this is how I surround myself with people that think like me and that I want to be like, right, that I like, wow, what unbelievable thought process and trust and confidence. And Wally, kind of to the point where you were talking about, you know, what makes great goal scorers great and what gives them that swagger. It's the same thing in good coaches, knowing that they can coach the way they want to coach, and they're going to, and they're right. And it's just a matter of time before either they attract the players and parents that want to be around that, or if they weren't, they wouldn't all be here. They wouldn't be doing this as long as you are. And I say that all the time to my parents. I'm like, listen, I've done really well in hockey, and I've done really well with development of kids. And if you came to me, I'm hoping that you understood that coming in, and you can trust that I trust, you know, that I want your son and daughter to succeed. And of course, I'm going to put them in the best environment to win. I just happen to think this is the race. This is not the race you're trying to win. And to your point, Al, we all hope that we see that 16, 17, 18-year-old kid that you're seeing. I use the example of Trevor Zegras all the time when we were doing our little floorball stuff and watching his body language and movement and surfing and finding areas of the ice or the court at the time that now translate to what his game is today. Exactly. I mean, the videos, if you look at the video of his movement when he was a 12-year-old in a gym floor and his video of him now in the corner of the ice, it is basically the exact same movements. And you didn't get that from dumping the puck in and moving the puck. I can guarantee you that. But it is hard. It's a hard fight when you're, especially in these big leagues, that can attract. You don't even need. I mean, honestly, you really don't even need tryouts down here. You're attracting the best kids no matter what. So I don't even know why they do try. Like if I'm a parent, like I can't believe I would pay $250 for a 3-day tryout for a team you know you're not going to make because you're not on it yet. It's just a weird thing. Like, oh, I want my kid to be challenged. So they're already attracting the best kids. So our job is to, you know, my view is to attract all those other kids and just get them better, and get them to love coming to the rink every day. And then the kids will crop up. But it's funny how the programs that develop the kids the most are the ones that get the kids stolen from the most. I mean, it's like, yeah. Well, you know, I watch kids down in this area here, like 8 kids leave one club team, you know, a town team, and go try out for an elite team, and all 8 kids make it. And I'm like, why are you leaving? You all made the team. So why don't you just stay with what's working for you? I mean, obviously you didn't get developed by them in the tryout. You've been developed. So continue down that same path. But it's I don't know. It's hard to trust that.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm just curious. There's a point where I'm thinking of girls and Tom's team going, not Jordan's team going to the tournament playing AAA hockey. And if you play AA hockey, you're likely not going to get scouted. AAA girls, that's at the U18 level. There's all kinds of college scouts all the time. In Ontario, the female hockey has a U19 league, and they get scouted. They want to get scouted. They want to get seen. Why? Because they need a scholarship. It's a case of financial necessity in most cases, not necessarily being an Olympian or making the NHL. So there's a point where how do they realize that if they stay at that level, they still have an opportunity, when the reality is that people don't look at those other leagues as much as they look at the so-called elite leagues? How do you deal with that? Because they're going to leave because of that. They want to get scouted. They want to get seen. They're not bad people for doing it, because their motive is to try to get what's best for their kid and maybe their families in the long run, relative to cost.
Right. So my answer to that, I mean, and it's probably, maybe it doesn't go across the board for everyone, but this is what I tell people down here, right? I did a lot of work with the Junior Panthers for a little while, and they have this thing called the Florida Alliance down there, and even, you know, here in New York and Connecticut. If you're the whole idea for you to go to a team, if I'm playing for Jordan Fenton, you're already with the player, that the person that's going to give you the exposure you want, isn't it? I mean, don't the great coaches already know that if you're that these great players, if they're good enough and they have the skills and they have the character and they're able to play at a higher level, aren't those recruiters attracted to the you know, what do they call it in the tipping point, the mavens, like the Jordan Fentons and the Tom Malloys, the mavens, right? The people that have already attracted the best character people and players, and now are going, the reason you go there in the first place is to get exposure. So do you need to go to a place to get exposure, when a good coach, hopefully a good recruiter, is going to say, well, yeah, it's easy to compile all these kids onto one team, but it's really hard for an individual player to get better and look at the work they have to put in to be the best player on this AA team. Again, I'm not sure the structure up there with the girls' side, but I know, like, on the boys' side down here, you know, you don't need to go to, if you're already playing for Martin St. Louis, and actually there's another guy down here, they go to like 16 different tournaments at the 14U level. Dallas, Chicago, Detroit, Florida twice, back to Dallas. I'm like, the whole reason to play for this person is that they have the connections. They're already the person that is supposed to be springboarding you. So why do you need to go get somewhere else to get exposure when the person who's supposed to be selling you the exposure should be developing you within their system? I don't know. I just look at it differently, and most of the people that I work with, and even some of the young guys that I work with as coaches, like, listen, you just gotta find a way to bring as much value into that organization as possible, and then you better damn be making sure you're allowing other coaches to know how good the kids are on your team, without having to drive, 13 hours to go play in a tournament to do that.
Like, can I jump in here?
Go ahead.
Our organization is quite different. It's like in Calgary, there's Girls Hockey Calgary, and they all try out for the AAA team. There used to be 3 AAA teams, and now there's just 1. And then they have 2 AA teams. So basically, there's too many good players for just the one team. So in the AA, like Jordan's team, there are a few players there that can play college. And then there's only 6 AAA teams in the whole province of Alberta. So girls have to move away from home, like from Grand Prairie or something, to way, 5-6 hours away if they want to play AAA. So sometime they'll just stay at, in Grand Prairie and play there. And they just hope that they'll get seen. But, as far as recruiting and that, I won't go to very many AA things. I'll watch the AAA because they've already been
Yeah,
filtered
cult.
through the thing. So that's kind of, you know, I think Little League Baseball in the States is organized kind of like that. You have to play where you live. And I think the hockey, like our spring hockey is like yours. It's just random people recruiting, stealing from each other, you know, all this kind of stuff. And now there's an outlaw league in the boys hockey. That I don't know if really any rules except to steal from each other.
Yeah.
So, you know, they broke away from Hockey Alberta. So probably more like you have to deal with, because the traveling you guys do is just, I can't believe that basically is a rich person's game, right? If you're going to go on an airplane across the country, I know 2 of my daughters, there's no way in the world they can afford their kids to play hockey, where one daughter, her son's playing junior A now, and he went through all of that stuff, and it was costing a fortune. So
Yeah, there's no doubt it's eliminated so many people from the sport, and I think, but at the same time down here, people, I don't know how they do it. I really don't. I don't know how they could get on. I can't even get on a plane to go to a vacation once a year. I said I don't know how they can. I don't know how that you can literally go to from Brewster, New York, or Fairfield County, New York, Westchester, New York, to Dallas more than twice, let alone 8 times. And
then hotels and all that too.
Yeah, you don't even take an account. I do a parent calculator with the groups that I work with that I say, if you give me one tournament weekend, imagine you give me the revenue from one weekend, just one, not all of them, one, and you're probably in the vicinity where we are of $18,000 to $20,000 in expenses for a team to go away. Like if you put all the pooling, everything together, hotels and airfare and the tournament T-shirt and all the ice time and all the meals and all the beer. And I'm like, imagine what you could do, how much greater experience you can give our kids rather than sitting in O'Hare Airport, hoping that the flight's not delayed to get to a stupid game that you play, 12 minutes of ice time in. It doesn't, it's so I guess, to my point to Wally was, I understand that players in certain regions maybe have to get out and get exposure. But for a lot of these coaches that I work with, or I guess work against, that are claiming that they're the people that are going to get them the exposure, then why do you need to go to them and then leave? And then go somewhere else to have somebody look at you? You should be going to them because they're going to be your biggest advocate. They're going to be the one calling the Tom Malloy saying, I got this girl here that's unbelievable. And especially today with today's technology, I remember as a college recruiter, looking at Betamax tape, right? And fast forwarding just to see the one player, like, okay, I missed him, I got to go back. Oh, I missed him, I got to go back. Now you just go in to Instat and say, okay, I want number 19 on the Vernon Vipers, and boom, I got every shift that the kids played for the last 20 games instantly. So I think there's a better way to do it, and I think there's more creative ways we can create environment for our kids.
I got a couple of stories for you. That first of all, I got a videotape last week from a girl, like a bunch of videos. And she said, these are my clips from my games. She didn't tell me what her number was or which team she was playing on. So it was just all these videos, people, some random whatever. I said, can you tell me what color you are, what number? And then I got a call in Chester County near Pennsylvania there in Pennsylvania. Right where Biden lives, 10 minutes from Biden's house. They want to bring their team. It's a junior high team. They want to bring their team for a week to Calgary and have me train them. I used to go there quite a few times a long time ago. And so to help their recruiting, because they're not bringing in as many good players. And they have an exchange with Finland too, that they trade players. Finland sends 1 or 2 players there, and they do the same thing, send them to Finland. And so that's just some examples of recruiting and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a different animal when you get up to like the 18U level, right, than it is with the younger kids. Like I think that I kind of see those as 2 totally different situations. But like with the younger kids, like I feel like there's labels and then there's value, right? Like there's the club versus town label, and then there's the elite versus platinum label. You know, like elite being the higher division, platinum being the next one down. And then there's value, right? So like a label's really worth nothing. Like what value are they delivering, right? So I can tell you for our town program versus club, and we've had enough players who have come from club teams to our town team who say like we get way more value here than we ever did from our club team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there's that.
They do it
Then
in
there's
Calgary
chasing
here.
that lit. What's that?
The way they do it in Calgary, like I live in an area, Trails West is the organization.
Yeah.
So they have all the age groups, and then there's levels. So Div 1 is the best kids, and Div 2, and they, and they filter the kids through that, and then come Bantam. Calgary's divided into 4 quadrants, and they try out for their own quadrant. They have to try out, 1/4 of the city basically. You have to live in that area, but they still have the Bantam in the Trails West. So the kids will break off and go for this quadrant hockey and see if they can get on that. But they have to play in their areas, and then come midget on the U18. Then they let them, if they get cut, I think they can try out for one other quadrant. And so they have.
And that's the major difference I see, like moving from up home to down here, right? Like you hit the nail on the head when you were saying here it's a lot like spring hockey, because it is like you can play from wherever you want. Yeah, like I could drive from Freetown, Massachusetts, and go try out for the Midfield Junior Rangers if I wanted to drive 3 hours every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we'd encourage it. Like it's like it's weird. Like it's like well, it's not and again I get that and here too, Tom. You got to remember there's so many private rinks. Like everybody's a private. It's not like the town owns the rink and they can keep costs down. In a lot of cases, like the Massachusetts rinks, that was a great unbelievable idea back in the 70s, right? That make these MDC rinks that they're all the same. They help the town and grow. But now you've got like Marlborough has 9 rinks now. How many rinks do they have over the place? So now it's just I think it really comes down to what ROI, right, and what your value is. And I see that all the time. I tell people, okay, wait, you pay $2,000 a year and you get all of this, and you're paying $8,000 and you're getting none of that, none of it, not even. I'm like, what? Like I have a debate all the time with our parents. Like, you told us we're a AAA team. I go, you told me you were a AAA player. I said, we can only, what's Bill Parcells like? You are what your record says you are, right? I mean, you can't say you're a AAA team and then only play a tournament or A teams because that's who you can be competitive against. I just think you just got to play the teams that allow you to be competitive. So whatever that is, the Connecticut Hockey Conference actually does a really good job with this. Everybody's kind of in one pool, and then they reseed you during the whole year. So at the end of the year, when you play like in the playoffs, all the like teams are all playing each other at the end of the year. So when you go to those games, they're all like 6-5 and 7-6 and 2-1, and like it just becomes where maybe at the beginning of the year you were in games where it might have been like 11-1. So it is a big difference. I mean, it's a great. I think it's a good system that way. But it's thanks, Al. But I think it's definitely like one of those conversations, Tom, that just becomes, what is the return on your investment, and what's the quality that you're getting, and I think that just comes down to parent education and research and buyer beware type stuff.
Your return on investment, Mike, is an interesting conversation. I think that
Jordan, you're pretty low.
Oh, I was just saying that the return on investment idea is one that I find interesting in that my math and many parents' math don't make sense, or they're not the same. In that if a parent will pay $40,000 a year for their kid to play high school hockey all the way through in an academy or whatever, just so that they can get a scholarship to a Canadian school, which isn't a full scholarship. Some get Div 1 full ride scholarships, but if all you're doing is putting that money up out front rather than paying for your kids' education and letting them play in the community where they grew up and just enjoying playing the game for the game.
And I've always had that argument with people. Like if the Division I kid is the kid you're producing, it's probably going to be the kid that's going to get produced anyway. Like, that person's going to become that person statistically. Like, so yeah, are you spending, I laugh all the time. Like you spent, $19,000 last year to get your kid to go to SUNY Potsdam, which cost only 10,000 to go to, something like that. So you spent all this to get him here. And I'm like, and he's miserable and he hates going to the rink. And to me, I've never coached Division I college hockey. I coached Division III college hockey. And in the years I did that, back then when I was doing it, the end game was never pro. Like those kids weren't going to go pro. There were some kids that, would play minor pro, but nobody's going to the NHL. So really you had to that should have been the pinnacle. Like that should have been the best experience you could ever have. But it's amazing what players will do now to not even be able to get there. And it's almost like when I watch these kids that go through these AAA premier elite teams at 10 years old, the disappointment, because you can never match it. Like if that's the pinnacle of your life in hockey, the highlight is a 12-year-old going to Quebec and flying there and staying in hotels and eating great meals. And then that's the highest level that you're going to achieve. I don't know. I just find that very sad. And I think it's more for mom and dad than it is for the kid. But, some people have proved me wrong, but but for the most part, I always look at ROI and say, if you really want to be that elite athlete, and I get in trouble sometimes. I'll say I'm using like a Texas Instrument calculator, and you're using like an abacus here. Like I don't understand what we're not even speaking the same language. If you really are truly interested in development and the end game, then you got to listen to the people that know how to put your kid to that end game.
Well, I was asked one time about why do we stream hockey? And of course I said, so you can get like on like and for development and all that. And they said, no, it's not that. He said, because you can have kids play shinny out on the pond. They'll throw sticks in the middle, be different ages, different sizes, different abilities, play all afternoon and have fun. He said, it's so parents can sew 1A, 2A, or 3As on their coat. He said, I think we should invent a 4th A coat and just send that to the parents that need it.
Yeah, people like the A's. They definitely. I don't know when that shifted. I know. I think I had a debate. It was a long time ago, just about the B to A. The difference between A1 and B, and it was just. And then I couldn't figure out, was A1 better than A or was it less than A? So there you go. But I got to run too. I'm sorry, but Wally, thanks so much again. Good conversation.
Okay, bud. Take care.
Next week.
Okay. Take care, bye.
All right, bye, guys.
Care. Okay.
Mike.
So Jordan, Tom, you're still on?
I'm just writing up my practice plan for tonight.
Okay.
There it is.
Jordan,
this one thing and I had the wrong title. I got it now.
I think my daughter and her husband are coming in from Blairmore and bringing me supper tonight. So I'm not sure I want to come watch you practice, but I'm scheduling the Sunday game, Jordan, to watch the two teams play. And
yeah, Sunday should be a good game. Tonight's practice should be okay too. I've got 4 of the U15 affiliates coming out to practice with us tonight because we will need 1 or 2 of them on Sunday. We've got 1 injury and one of our D will likely be going with the AAA team to Red Deer. So there'll be use of some, but yeah, and Sunday's game should be a fun one. Who knows? It'll be for first place in the league overall. So
all the marbles.
Yeah, we'll see. It won't determine who gets to go to the provincial tournament or anything. It just won't make any difference there. But
yeah, the game Sunday is where and when again, Jordan? I'm writing it down.
Ectus at 10 a.m.
Okay, I've got it.
I think we had our full team for the first time this year last night.
Oh.
Tom, I don't know how you'll feel after on Sunday morning, but that's two of the best AA teams in Calgary. If you're interested, give me a call.
Okay.
Because it'll be a pretty good matchup. And Jordan, you went to the same AAA tournament, I believe, in BC. Did you not, Tom?
Yeah, we'd go once a year when I was doing the Fire AA, and there was a mixture of teams there. We always did pretty well.
Yeah. Well, Jordan played teams from Alberta that are in the AAA league, so he knew who they were and got a lot out of it. It was a good
Yeah.
experience.
Well, it was the same when we went. There'd be some Alberta teams, but we flew because I remember being at those tournaments and some couldn't get through and had to stay in hotels in little towns on the way because the snow plugged the highway and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah, we were lucky getting through both ways. The Coke was fine both ways. Was the part that I was concerned about. It's that summit of the Coquihalla can be the bad spot, but it was good. And of course, there's tons of snow between Golden and Revelstoke this year, so it was when you can't see over the banks on the side of the highway on a bus, you know that there's lots of snow.
yeah, so it's just flip a coin whether you make it through. Sometime it can be perfect, and then other times because I remember the last when we went to three teams we had to play them in the evening instead of the morning and all this because they had to stay in some town on the way because the town was Coquihalla was plugged or something like that.
Yeah, it was good. There was one other AA team out of our league that was there. St. Albert was there from the AA league, but St. Albert AAA was there as well. That's who we ended up playing, them and Lloydminster. Should have beat Lloyd, but lost them 2-1 in their last game. And St. Albert, they aren't the big powerhouse that they once were, but they still played really well. And we gave up a few goals we probably shouldn't have. And that was the difference, that the kids learned in the first two games that against good teams, when you make that mistake, it's going to cost you. And but they didn't stop playing, which was awesome. And then we ended up beating the one team from Vancouver and lost to Vancouver Island by a 1 goal. That we should have won that game too, but Vancouver Island beat the AAA team, Fire AAA too. So it was like one of those things that Fire AAA only had 1 win and a tie in the round robin, and we only had 1 win. So the girls were kind of thinking that's okay, that we didn't do that bad that way. And so it was good good reminders of how fast it is. How you got to play faster, and there's some kids that really rose to the occasion, and then the other was that the whole idea of picking up sticks in front of the net, and they played probably better D zone in that than they played all year long, which was good. So my fingers are crossed that it's going to translate to the game Sunday and as we go forward.
And that's always a challenge. It's always a little faster. Even Canada playing the US in the Olympics, that first game, where they'd had all those laughers that they played. So they were used to being able to do things slow, and then the US was right on top of them, and they looked like a midget team, shooting it into shin pads on the boards and giving the puck away. And that's the deal. As you go up, everything's quicker.
Yeah.
And then the good habits really come to the fore then, like you say, about picking up sticks and protecting the puck and